This was the most tested vaccine in the history of vaccination.
Yes, I had it.
Because
I had to
so many people by that point had had it. It's like by the time it got into my arm, it's like, all right, I think I'm going to be okay.
Okay, well, just so you know, I took one for the team. Okay, so
I mean, he got slaughtered in the kindest way possible that Brian Griffin ever could. Oh, I was going to show this. Oh my God. Thank you, Chatter, for bringing this up. I watched this entire video because as much as I criticize Seth MacFarlane, he did such a good job against Bill Maher. Okay, before we move on to some other stuff, this is such a good job. And no, this has nothing to do with comedy at all. I would never in a million years defend Seth MacFarlane's comedy. This has nothing to do with comedy. Just watch. Absolutely cooks him. Absolutely cooks him on the vaccine stuff.
But then why are doctors wrong about so much?
Well, they're right about a lot too.
But very often people who aren't doctors have been righter about things.
Like what would be an example of that?
I would think this country did not allow for natural immunity to be considered. And I know this is a subject dear to your heart.
Yes.
Like even if you had the disease, you still had to get a vaccine. That's powerful, stupid. They don't do that in Europe.
I think they do that here. There's mandatory vaccination in schools.
Right, but if you already had the disease, you have natural immunity. We didn't seem to believe in that.
That was debunked, though. I mean, that's
not debunked.
Don't you know people who've had COVID 4 or 5 times? I do. That's not natural immunity. There's no immunity there. You've had COVID 5 times.
Probably because you had too many vaccines. I didn't have COVID.
Did the vaccine gave you COVID?
Such an idiot.
Well, that's certainly nothing unscientific about the fact that the vaccine, which does weaken you in order to strengthen you.
Says do all vaccines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But while you're in a weakened state, yes. That's why so many people like me got it, did not have it while the thing was raging and I was taking zero precautions because I was never that afraid of it.
But that's anecdotal. Like I've had every booster there is to
anecdotal
have,
yeah.
And I have never had COVID. I get a flu shot once a year. I haven't had the flu in 20 years.
Right. Well, I haven't either. I don't get a flu shot.
Okay, so this is all anecdotal.
Right.
But you know the difference between anecdotal and statistical.
I do.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he only does it on issues that suit him. I can't believe it's not Peter Griffin, it's Brian.
And statistically, you still have a 90% better chance of not being hospitalized, not dying if you're vaccinated.
Okay, but that's assuming all people are alike, and that is one of the giant fallacies in your way of thinking. We are not all alike. Yes, I would recommend and have recommended the COVID vaccine for the high-risk people. Like if you're 90 or fat, get it. Absolutely, you need it. Some people don't.
But you had
Djokovic didn't need it.
But you had
Aaron Rodgers didn't need it.
But you had something like 1,900 kids who died of COVID during the pandemic.
No, I don't think that's right.
How many of them died from the vaccine?
He's like, I don't think that's right. Yeah, it is. What do you mean?
None.
The New York
and the thinking there is that probably most kids are not going to die.
It's funny because he says like, oh, if you're fat, you should get it, and it's like, dog, what percentage of Americans are obese? Like. Even on that front, you're still wrong. Considering how fat Americans are, then yes, mass inoculation is a necessity, okay? It's really frustrating to have this conversation, and he's still having it. Like, he's literally having this conversation in 2023, okay? It's so dumb. The entire purpose of the vaccines is to ensure or to get as close to a 100% as you possibly can that you won't die when you get COVID, okay? You won't take the fattest of L's, death. You won't get hospitalized. That's it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it was promoted, sold, what people thought it would do, okay? That's just it. That's the major reason. And everyone has a different motivation for spreading that, right? Capital owners want it because we are livestock, and you vaccinate your livestock. That's it. Why do you vaccinate your livestock? You don't want your livestock to die. And if we are livestock, then yes, our bosses, who also inoculated themselves, and in some instances, inoculated themselves first, okay? They want you to get vaccinated too, so that you can get the fuck back to work, so that the worst aspects of COVID are limited. This is just Brian Griffin reading a 2021 Institute of Virology public health recommendation, and the vaccine skeptical people were all moved by this. Convinced me that we need mascots for public health like Japan does. I mean, yeah, that would be pretty far in general. All right, let's continue.
From COVID. So why bother with the vaccine? Because it's only going to be a few hundred kids, right?
I don't know how many kids died. That seems very high to me. I know at one point the New York Times grossly, talking about misinformation, they had to apologize. They got it completely wrong. She reported something like 900,000 children have been hospitalized, and it was like 63,000. So maybe those facts should be checked.
Papers can get it wrong, and they print retractions, and you know this.
But also, with COVID or from COVID, did 1,900 children die with COVID? Yes, it's a whole different story.
Okay, but take 7 million people worldwide. 7 million people worldwide who died from COVID. Like, if even just a fraction of that is, and it's probably a larger fraction who died of COVID than who died with COVID. If even just a fraction of that is, that's still a lot of fucking people. That's a lot of fucking people.
Yes, but what? Okay,
That's
some
7
people,
million people.
things are, and you cannot prevent that.
You can, though. I mean, you can prevent.
At what cost?
But what's the cost of getting a vaccine? What's
the fact that you don't, the fact that you don't even have a clue what's the cost of getting a vaccine, that you don't know the answer to that? No, you completely want to shut your eyes to the fact that there are repercussions to all medical interventions, including a vaccine. All vaccines, they say side effects just like every medication does. You can see it in the literature. They can't write it on the back, on the vaccine, so you have to dig them. And of course there is a vaccine court because so many people have been injured. This is not a screed to say don't do vaccines. I'm not against doing vaccines. I'm against doing vaccines that I don't think I need. I should be able to decide that for myself inside my body. But yes, there are.
This is why you needed mass inoculation campaigns and also rules and regulations surrounding vaccines, especially at the peak of the pandemic when the vaccines first came out. Because there's a lot of stupid people out there, including Bill Maher, who presents himself as a very smart guy, right? He's a liberal. That's why you got to do it. Bill Maher is supposed to be the smart guy, right? I mean, he's such a well-read lib. He's the peak of like Reddit, not libertarianism, but like Reddit atheism. It's also ironic that he's just blasting a gar. He's smoking a gar while simultaneously talking about like, well, I don't think I should be getting the vaccine. It's ironic also because he did get vaccinated, which you'll find out in a second. But it's just this is the reason why you need to have regulations surrounding this and say, like, look, you don't want to get the vaccine, your travel's going to be limited, okay? Sucks to suck for you. Not because people just simply wanted to stop you from doing fun stuff, but because you're too stupid to know any better. That's it.
Don't you think that
would come along that I would fight you for?
But don't you think
to get the vaccine?
Okay, that's a good point.
To get the vaccine.
And you bring me to my next point. Don't you think that the vitriol and the aggression towards that the anti-vaccination movement, the way it souped itself up during all this, that the next time there is a pandemic, our public health system is so weakened.
Yes,
it's
exactly,
so weakened.
because of them and their fucking misinformation that made people skeptical. The fact that everybody came out and said, if you get the vaccine, you cannot get the disease, and then of course that was wrong. And if you get the vaccine, you can't transmit it.
But
and
they were learning right alongside us.
I understand.
They're not. You just said yourself, doctors are often wrong. They are, especially when they're researching a brand new disease.
And I am not blaming them for it. I'm just saying that's why there shouldn't be the science. There's no the in science. That's what you want. You want just to be the one true opinion.
That's not true at all.
It is.
No, the strength
and
of
you don't
science.
want to. You don't know.
The strength of science is that it has the capacity to evolve.
But just acknowledge that vaccines have ill effects on some people.
They do. Of course they
anecdotally.
Do. But statistically, it's here and it's here. It's like it's people. How many? 7 million people died of COVID. How many people died from
the likelihood that an unvaccinated person that will die of COVID, in comparison to that same vaccinated person not dying of COVID, too statistically significant. The difference is too statistically significant. Whereas a person dying of a vaccine injury is statistically insignificant. That's it. Even from a dice roll type situation, the side effects are marginal at most. The fact that you might legitimately be harmed by the vaccine is marginal. So if you want to talk about it from a science perspective, you want to look at the actual statistics, then yeah, those odds are ridiculous. Same goes for all medication, and you would never make that argument for other medication. It's so stupid.
The vaccine, probably a few,
but
I don't know what the number is, but I know it's not 7 million.
If we were more judicious about who needed it versus who it might hurt, which would not be the blanket policy of just everybody one size fits all.
Oh, if you have a pre-existing condition and you can't get vaccinated, the government has that accounted for. What are you talking about? It's not like you couldn't opt out of vaccinations. It's just that you couldn't opt out of vaccinations for ridiculous reasons like religious reasons, or I don't want to do it because I am afraid. It's so stupid.
Then perhaps we could take down the damages from the vaccine that happened.
But then
and we
why
could
vaccinate for
take-
anything?
And then
Why-
take down the...
Why vaccinate for measles? Why not? Why vaccinate for mumps or rubella?
Yeah.
Pertussis. Why vaccinate for any of those things? Because somebody might get hurt by the vaccine. I mean, why do those vaccines? Because COVID is newer.
Well, COVID is newer.
I mean, these are all questions I've asked time and time again, and have gotten like, I guess, progressively stupider answers to. But he's right.
Yes, but is that the only reason? I mean,
No.
this was by the time you got the vaccine. I don't know if you had it, but by the time I got the vaccine, this was the most tested vaccine in the history of vaccination.
Yes, I had it.
Because
I had to
so
get it.
many people by that point had had it. It's like by
Right.
the time it got
Well,
into my arm, it's
okay.
like, all right, I think I'm going to be okay.
Okay, well, I just so you know, I took one for the team. Okay, so
I mean, he got slaughtered in the kindest way possible that Brian Griffin ever could. The only thing, this only works if there's mutual respect. Yeah, I mean, Seth MacFarlane is like a bit of a petulant lib himself in many instances. So I think that's what it is. He's lucky Stewie wasn't there. Shilling for the vaccine in 2024 with all the data available isn't smart. The vaccine doesn't stop you from getting or transmitting COVID, so it's 100% a personal choice to get it or not. No, it doesn't matter. Okay? A seatbelt doesn't stop you from still getting in a car accident. What are you talking about? Or even being significantly harmed in a car accident. But the government should absolutely still regulate it and ensure you have to put a seatbelt on while you're driving. That's it. The vaccine is a seatbelt. It is not for me. I will take the vaccine, okay? And I did. And even got a booster on top of that. I don't anymore. But regardless, if there was like a massive, pandemic again, like it was, or if it was a variant was like genuinely ripping through, I would absolutely take the vaccine again. Okay? The idea that like the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting or transmitting COVID, so it's 100% a personal choice is stupid. Also, your name is Hutch Poker. This is a great take. Dude's got poker in his name, arguing against the odds. How are you going to have poker in your name and look at the actual odds? You have to be the worst gambler of all time, I suspect. For index cases, being fully vaccinated with an mRNA vaccine reduced the odds of onwards transmission by 4/5 compared to unvaccinated index cases. Yeah, that's partially because it would reduce the symptoms dramatically too. That's it, including the most important symptom, which is going to the hospital and dying. Okay? That's it. That's it.